Evening, everyone. I'm just going to give it another minute as I see a few more people coming in, and then we'll be starting shortly. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Michelle Lesher. I'm a sister of St. Joseph who is living in Philadelphia these days. And I am delighted on behalf of the Lifelong Transformation Committee of the Federation to welcome you to this listening circle tonight. And just as a reminder that you may know that the intent really of our listening circles is one way of celebrating the 375th anniversary of the congregation. And each of these sessions has really invited us to gather and share about how this CSSJ charism is moving in our lives and growing relationships among the family of Joseph across the whole of North America. And so we started certainly with the launch of the 375th anniversary on Founders Day. And then we continued with Mary Jo Rady in January, really sharing about Father Madai. And tonight we're going to continue to listen how spirit is active and alive in our stories and our lives, really weaving together the oneness in a world that is longing for unity and unifying love. And so as we gather this night, our theme for the evening is dreaming the little design anew. And so it's in that spirit that I would like to share a little bit about perhaps a new way to think about our vocation on this eve of the Feast of St. Joseph, maybe our vocation to the cordial charity of Joseph, our Joseph whose actions and words and intentions and works were really characterized by a manner that was loving and caring and concerned. And so as we gather this night in prayer, we'll really be asking ourselves, how is it that we can respond to God's call as Joseph did, leaning into God's dream of inclusive love in a hurting world? How is it that we might be called to stir up love in these very complicated times? And so we pray. So, loving God, we thank you and praise you for the power of your presence deep in our hearts, for the vitality of your presence here in our midst, for this opportunity to pray and celebrate our common hope. Who is Joseph? There is the Joseph of our first six sisters, the Joseph of the early documents, and our Joseph. The Joseph each and every one of us finds when we look deep into the common spiritual core of our shared identity with the Sisters of St. Joseph. Our Joseph is the Joseph of the loving manner, not so much the Joseph who served and ministered, as the Joseph who served and ministered lovingly with care and concern. Not so much the Joseph who did or who was this or that, as the Joseph whose actions and words and intentions and works were characterized by a manner that was loving and caring and concerned.
To your word, my ears wide open. To your truth, my arms wide open. To your light, my eyes wide open. To your word, to your truth, to your light, to your love, oh Lord, my heart wide open. To your word, my ears wide open. To your truth, my arms wide open. To your light, my eyes wide open. To your word, to your truth, to your light, to your love, oh Lord, my heart wide to your word, my ears wide open. To your truth, my arms wide open. To your light, my eyes wide open. To your word, to your truth, to your light, to your love, oh Lord, my heart wide open. To your word, to your truth, to your light, to your love, oh Lord, my heart wide open.
And so, what is it that we might need to really dream the little design anew? I wonder if heart and arms and eyes wide open, able to see the miseries and the challenges of these times, to respond in the spirit, the way that our first sisters and those who were associated with them did in 1650, to be aware that that's continued ever since, and that that's our invitation as well. Those sisters, associates, and partners were deeply rooted in and inspired by the love of those two trinities. And that included certainly the cordial love of Joseph. Thinking about this feast of Joseph and dreaming the little design anew, I started to think about perhaps this invitation to a vocation of cordial charity. And I was reminded of many different times that I've heard our sisters speak about that word cordial, from Marcia Allen and many other sisters who really talk about what did that word really mean in the 17th century France, you know. But if we think about the word cordial as courteous and gracious, as a friendly spirit, there's also this idea of it. It's something about invigorating the heart or stimulating something that's sincere and heartfelt, relating to the heart. And it's also a strong, sweetened liqueur. But in that time, it was also a stimulating medicine. It was something that invigorated, exhilarated, and stirred up the heart. And so I wonder if when we think about that, that kind of love, a love that really desires to stir up union, if we think about that kind of cordial charity that really animates, exhilarates, invigorates, and if we think about Joseph and really consider Joseph as a lover, as somebody who helped to stir up love, who helped to birth love, who helped to bring love into the world. and think about Joseph, who really was a person who lived with love at the center of his life. That love and that care that he had for Mary, for Joseph, for every neighbor was really what grounded and rooted him. That cordial kind of love, that charity. And isn't that really who we're called to be as followers of Joseph, as followers of those first people of Le Puy? I wonder if loving radically and widely and expansively in a way that really does try to bring about union is the way that we can dream the little design anew for the sake of the reign of God, to be kingdom people at this moment. Maybe love is really the best way that we can help to keep trying to bring about God's dream for the world. And this kind of love is not an easy love. It is the kind of love that Joseph had. A love that risked everything to bring about new life, really without knowing what would happen, how that story would end. A love that fiercely protected and found new ways when the old ways no longer worked. Maybe for us, that invitation to cordial love is really about living the love of St. Joseph, living the love that we know that we're called to live. As Father Jean-Pierre Médaille is sometimes quoted as having said, "I love love and I let love love through me." And so I wonder how it is that we're called to embody this cordial charity, how to dream the little design anew. How today might we listen deeply enough to let love love through us as we grapple with our response to these challenging times? What's our invitation to dream the little design anew? And so I invite you into some moments of quiet, a contemplative pause together, to consider this question: how can we respond to God's call as Joseph did, leaning into God's dream of inclusive love in a hurting world? How are we called to stir up love in what we might name as complicated times? How is Joseph a model of this for us? And so we're going to take about 5 minutes of quiet right here in this space together, thinking about our invitation to respond to God's call as Joseph did. And so in a few moments, we're going to invite you into groups of about five. And as you enter into the conversation, we're going to use the synodal listening process. So for those of you who have been here before, this will be familiar. As you begin, you'll each share your response to that question. How can we respond to God's call, as Joseph did, leaning into God's dream of inclusive love in a hurting world? How are we called to stir up love in these complicated times? And each person will share, and there'll be a pause if you would just leave some space in between each person sharing. And then after everybody's had the opportunity to share, then there'll be a round two where you'll really talk about what was it that resonated with you or what moved you, what spoke to your heart as others shared. And again, as each person shares, take a pause in between. And then for the third sharing, as you have the conversation together, what's the gift or the idea or an idea or a word or a phrase that you'd like to reflect back to the large group when you return? So when you enter into your small group room, if you would decide together if somebody would like to lead the conversation and perhaps begin it and help to facilitate the movement of the group. Um, and again, you might want to take a moment in the beginning to introduce yourselves and maybe to take a moment or two of quiet to enter back into that space once you arrive together. And we'll come back to the large group at about 8:15, so you'll have plenty of time to do this in a reflective manner. And so Kristen will open the breakout groups for us now.
Just having some technical difficulties back here.